Yesterday, we had the final NDP leadership debate in Vancouver, and there's now just a week remaining before the vote takes place. But before I talk about the debate, let's just take a moment to look at recent events preceding the debate that may contextualize a few things. For starters, as most people in the world have seen by now, at a Jagmeet Singh event the other day, Jagmeet was approached by a rather bigoted woman as he was supposed to start speaking. Why do I say she's bigoted? Because she asked him, a Sikh, about having ties to the Muslim Brotherhood and being in bed with Sharia. How are you so stupid? How? How are you so Anyway, he handled it pretty well. He spoke over her about welcoming her despite her apparent hate and how he and everyone at the event loves her. But you all know that already. I mean, it's been covered not just on national news here in Canada, but it's also gone pretty viral and gotten commentary internationally. From people like UK members of parliament, to Jake Tapper on CNN, to the daughter of MLK. Anyway, I only mention it because it did get a little coverage at the debate, with him mentioning it beforehand and thanking everyone for the outpouring of support he's received since it happened, and with Nikki praising how he handled it in her opening statement of the debate. Honestly, the only critique of how he handled it that I could even think of mustering is that he talked over her. But even that isn't really a fair critique, because she was hardly being polite enough to earn a better response. Now, if I were the conspiracy type, I'd question the whole thing as seeming like a pretty convenient occurrence for further boosting his name recognition, but I don't actually believe this is anything suspicious. I think that was actually a genuine bigot who felt like harassing a brown guy over a religion she may or may not have known he doesn't even follow. Still, this is going to help his name recognition a ton, and will definitely do wonders for whatever race he ends up running in next, be it federal or provincial. Anyway, besides that, we also had a new policy release from the Current campaign a few hours before the debate on the topic of having a true nation-to-nation relationship with Indigenous peoples. It's pretty lengthy, but highlights are immediately signing on to UNDRIP, providing way more funding for getting clean water, better healthcare, better education, and housing for Indigenous peoples, and the establishment by Parliament of a National Council for Reconciliation. I'll link it in the description for those who want to read the whole thing, since on last check his website's homepage didn't link to it yet. Besides that, endorsements are also coming in for just about everyone. Jagmeet now has 3 union endorsements, as well as a bunch of MPs, including former leadership candidate Peter Julian. Guy has the United Steelworkers, the second-place guy from the last leadership race, and a former NDP leader. Charlie Angus has former leadership candidate Pat Strogan and David Suzuki, and Nikki Ashton has the Socialist Caucus. Obviously, they all have more than that, but those are the most notable, and they give a pretty good approximation of where the support of each of them lie. So, the debate. Most notably, things got pretty aggressive between Jagmeet and Charlie, with both of them accusing each other of not caring about seniors in poverty, and Charlie repeatedly making statements about needing a leader in the House this fall, referencing Jagmeet saying he won't run for a federal seat until the 2019 election. And yet it was Nikki who ended up asking him directly about that, if Jagmeet plans to run federally even if he loses. And as he did last time, he responded with, "I'm going to win." It was arrogant then, it's arrogant now, stop it. Anyway, back to his feud with Charlie, Mr. Angus decided it was a good idea to point out that a lot of Jagmeet's fundraising comes from Brampton, and pose the question of how that'll help the party federally, to which Jagmeet pointed out that these funds could be used to hire organizers elsewhere, which I found to be a rather fitting comeback. I also want to credit Jagmeet on a couple other things. First off, he finally committed to releasing a proposal for electoral reform, and says it's inspired by Guy's proposal. I look forward to seeing this, as I've been pushing for him to release such a proposal since he first started mentioning the issue. The other moment he deserves some credit for is bringing up the possibility of establishing a similar drug policy model to Portugal. For those who don't know, small possession of all drugs is decriminalized in Portugal, and in addition to that, there's a focus on harm prevention and addiction treatment. It's good public policy. I'm glad Jagmeet brought it up, and I'm glad that Guy and Nikki both seem very open to the idea. I wish they were a bit more strongly in favor of it, as Jagmeet was, though in the post-debate media scrum he also walked it back to about where they were, saying it's something that needs to be considered heavily and studied to determine if it's the right solution. Now, I say Portugal is all the study we need. It works there, so we should do the same here. Still, at least they all did better than the fumbled half-disagreement we got from Charlie on the idea. And yet, even with all that credit, Jagmeet could still land anywhere from 2nd to 4th on my ballot just because of things like how arrogant he comes off when asked if he'll run for a federal seat even if he loses, and his shaky stance on the Sherbrooke Declaration, not to mention his lack of an electoral reform proposal up until this point. And not only that, but the constant bickering between him and Charlie painted neither of them in a positive light overall, especially when they both accused each other of not caring about impoverished elderly people while misrepresenting each other's plans. Besides that, it was what you would normally expect from these debates. All candidates talking about fair trade over free trade, but only Guy going into the specifics of what that actually entails, while the best anyone else can muster is standing up to powerful moneyed interests. Jagmeet bringing up themes of love and courage and also pledging to stand up to exploitative temp agencies, Nikki attacking Charlie on his weak Kinder Morgan stance and saying there hasn't been enough discussion of Palestine in this race. As I said, the things you would normally expect. So I'm still undecided on how I'll rank anyone besides Guy. Jagmeet had a pretty good performance in this debate, but getting sucked into Charlie's bickering did him no favors. Nikki continues to impress in general, but not physically being at the debate didn't help her, as much as I understand that she couldn't due to being too far along in her pregnancy to fly to Vancouver. Having to work around presenting her answers through a video camera didn't help her much, and I do still have a few concerns about how she'd perform in an election outside of Quebec and Manitoba. And Charlie, well, this debate didn't do anything positive for him. Unless you were a supporter of his to begin with, there's no way you would be a fan of how he performed in this debate. He was way too aggressive and rarely fair in the criticism he was actually giving. Thankfully, I don't really have to decide anytime soon if I'll be supporting someone else as my second or third choice, because I'll be doing my voting online, and I recommend others do the same. It allows you to continue changing your vote right until it's actually time to do the next round of counting. So I still have plenty of time to decide who would be my second choice, if I even need to at all. With polling data not coming out until later today, it's yet to be seen where any candidate really stands as far as the horse race aspect of this goes, but I definitely think Guy has a real shot at winning. Still, regardless of who wins, I think the party is putting itself in very good shape to perform well in 2019.